One of the things I've been noticing about the campaign this year is the disappearance of the tie from the necks of America's political candidates. Of course, in Hillary's case, it was no surprise. And now with Sarah Palin, I don't expect her to wear a tie either. But the major political candidates in both parties have taken to appearing in public without their ties on. Now, this is a trend that goes back probably to the first George Bush, who I think was the first president who appeared often in public after his election without a tie on. And Bill Clinton continued the tradition, and now George Jr. Often appears in public without a tie when he wants to look dynamic and in charge. So what is it about not wearing ties that makes people feel like they're dynamic and in charge? Absolutely nothing, really. The problem is that we've reached a point in our country where we don't actually know what good behavior consists of anymore. There's differences of opinion that we see in the ways in which our political candidates are presented to us. We have now a half-black, half-white presidential candidate who insists on calling himself an African American when he's not, who ran against and successfully defeated a white woman who claimed to be the representative of the middle class when she's anything but. And we have a war hero representing the Republican Party whose war hero credentials are somewhat in question, although no one dares to ever bring that up. And a vice presidential candidate who in any other year would never have been considered for the post of Postmaster General, let alone Vice President of the United States. So what's going on here? Why have we reached such a nadir in our political candidates that we don't have anyone to choose from who isn't 72 years old, of questionable background and experience in international affairs, or perhaps none, and where the only person running who actually has good credentials is running for the second spot on the Democratic Party ticket? It's very strange. There's a consensus that no one wants to say out loud that if Obama were not half white, half black, and going about as an African American, he would never have gotten near this nomination. It's the combination of being well-spoken, astute, and politically savvy, and being half white, half black, that has made him the candidate that he's become. By contrast, Hillary, who can't lie with a straight face and who sounds like she's lying when she tells the truth, never really had a chance, because she kept rubbing the crucial people the wrong way. And that would be her own constituency, women voters. If she had mobilized those voters the way she intended, it would have been a hands-down race in her favor. But now we have the Sarah Palin controversy. Now here we have a fundamentalist hockey mom mother who's foursquare for apple pie, homemakers in the home, and gee, not have sex before we're married, who has, in the guise of a reformer, tried to get her ex-brother-in-law bounced off of the state police force, and has a knocked-up daughter who's questioning whether or not she actually wants to marry the boy who knocked her up, despite what the media has been telling us. This doesn't sound like the national debate over the future of our country. It sounds like a sitcom plot, one that would be rejected as unreasonably ridiculous. But that's what we're stuck with this year. And I, for one, am very confused about how we dig ourselves out of this mess. It's obvious that none of the candidates have any clue of how to fund any of the programs that they claim to be in favor of. Cutting taxes when we're trillions of dollars in debt doesn't seem like a really smart idea. But then neither does sending $7 billion to Georgia to repair the damage done by the Russian army make much sense either. As a matter of fact, should a country that's so deeply in debt that we have to borrow money to cover the debt service be giving away billions of dollars to countries we didn't invade and didn't destroy, when in fact our arch friends, the Russians, did? Let the Georgians sue the Russians in the International Court at The Hague to get reparations for the war damage. Don't come looking to us to dip into our debt to pay for their repairs. And that brings us back to the Republican and Democratic parties, which could only be described as in a state of extreme disrepair. How do we get from where we are now back to a reasonable discussion of the issues? when in fact the most astute person out there talking about the issues right now is T. Boone Pickens, who's making quite a name for himself, proposing simple things like converting our vehicles to natural gas. Of course, what Pickens doesn't seem to realize is that it costs $10,000 to $14,000 after all of the government rules and regulations are complied with to convert one vehicle to natural gas. And even with the tax rebate, you're still going to be $5,000 to $6,000 out of pocket, which you will never recover in the course of your ownership of that vehicle. And of course, his idea about the windmills is prescient, except for the fact that it would require more steel than the world produces over the next 10 years to build the number of wind generators that he wishes to build to replace foreign oil. These are great ideas. They're not well thought out. They will happen, but they won't happen through a centralized government that is so busy covering up its mistakes that it doesn't even have time to make new ones. And that's what we're going to elect in November. Someone who will be so busy covering up our old mistakes that perhaps with luck they won't have any chance to make new ones.